The smell of refrigerant usually calms me down, but that night, crawling through our own ducts, it smelled like betrayal. Hidden in the ductwork was my death certificate. I wiped the sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand, kneeling beside our basement furnace like I've done every month for the past 15 years. The familiar hum fills the silence, that steady rhythm that's been putting food on our table since Shannon and I bought this place. My toolbox spreads across the concrete floor, each tool in its designated spot. Organization matters when you're crawling through tight spaces for a living. Shannon's voice drifts down from upstairs, helping Tyler with his math homework. Something about fractions. The sound of their conversation feels normal, predictable. Everything the way it should be on a Tuesday evening in October. I check the filter, noting it's getting dirty but still has a few weeks left. The first hint of winter's creeping in, which means busy season's coming. Furnaces breaking down, emergency calls, overtime pay. Good for business, hell on my back. I methodically test each connection, muscle memory guiding my hands through the inspection. Gas pressure, electrical connections, heat exchanger, all the stuff that keeps families warm when the temperature drops. This is my equipment, my house, my responsibility. The irony isn't lost on me that I maintain other people's comfort for a living, then come home to maintain my own. At least I know the job's done right. The return air duct behind the master bedroom wall rattles when the system cycles on. That's new. I press my ear against the drywall, listening to the vibration. Probably a loose connection somewhere in the trunk line. Shannon calls down asking when I'll be finished. Dinner's getting cold. Meatloaf tonight, Tyler's favorite. Just need to check one thing, I call back, already reaching for my cordless drill. The access panel comes off easily. I installed it myself when we moved in. My flashlight beam sweeps across the familiar maze of sheet metal and insulation. Everything appears normal until the light catches something that definitely shouldn't be there. A manila envelope, wedged behind the main trunk line like someone tried to hide it. My stomach drops. I've been in enough tight spots to know when something's off. This envelope didn't fall here by accident. It was placed deliberately, shoved deep enough that only someone working on the system would find it. The paper feels expensive when I pull it free, heavier than typical household documents. Shannon's footsteps creak overhead, moving toward the bedroom directly above me. The furnace kicks on again, masking any sound as I break the seal. Consolidated life insurance letterhead stares back at me. My hands shake as I read the beneficiary change form, dated 8 months ago. Where my name should be, Marcus Chen is listed as primary beneficiary for our $750,000 policy. Shannon's signature sits at the bottom, notarized and official. I read it twice, then 3 times. The words don't change. My wife changed our life insurance without telling me, hiding the documents in our own ductwork like some kind of buried treasure. The basement suddenly feels colder despite the running furnace. 20 years I've been fixing heating systems, and I can't seem to warm the ice spreading through my chest. There's more. Correspondence from Meridian Wealth Management. Business cards with Marcus Chen's name embossed in gold lettering. Investment statements showing substantial transfers over the past 10 months. A paper trail of financial planning that excluded me entirely. Shannon's voice carries down again, asking if everything's okay. Found a loose connection. I force my voice steady. The irony burns. I found several loose connections tonight, and none involve ductwork. I sit back on my heels, documents spread across the basement floor like evidence at a crime scene. The smart thermostat logs on my phone show a pattern I never noticed before. Every Tuesday and Thursday when I'm at work, unusual activity, frequent temperature adjustments, almost like someone unfamiliar with the controls is experimenting. Shannon always complained about being cold, but these logs show the house heated to exactly 74 degrees during specific afternoon hours. The timestamps match perfectly with periods when I'm typically across town on service calls. Someone's been in our house regularly. Someone who doesn't know our system's quirks like Shannon does. Someone who needs the temperature warmer than my wife prefers. 18 months in Riverside Correctional taught me to think before acting, to gather evidence before making accusations. I carefully photograph each document with my phone, hands steadier now that shock's giving way to methodical thinking. The papers go back exactly where I found them, insulation smoothed into position. The access panel slides back with a soft click. "Ray!" Tyler's voice echoes down. "Mom says you need to help me with my science project." "Coming, buddy," I call back, my voice carrying none of the turmoil churning in my chest. At the dinner table, I watch Shannon differently. She serves Tyler's favorite pasta, chatting about her day at Blackwood and Associates, her father's law firm where she works as office manager. Every gesture seems calculated now. The way she avoids my eyes when discussing her schedule. How quickly she changes the subject when I mention my work routes for tomorrow. Tyler talks excitedly about his volcano project, oblivious to the tension crackling between his parents. Shannon's phone buzzes twice during dinner. She glances at it, then quickly flips it face down. "Just work stuff," she says, but her voice carries a note I've never heard before. Guilt. After Tyler goes to bed, I confront Shannon in our bedroom. Keep my voice level, casual. Ask about the insurance policy renewal I supposedly missed signing. Shannon freezes mid-motion while folding laundry, her back to me. When she turns, her face is carefully composed, but her eyes dart toward the wall where the documents are hidden. "I handled it," she says simply. "You were so busy with work, I didn't want to bother you with paperwork." Her explanation sounds rehearsed, like she's been preparing for this conversation. The space between us feels vast, despite the small room. "Who's Marcus Chen?" I ask. Shannon's face goes pale. He's the insurance adjuster who processed the change. Why?" "Just wondering why his name's on our policy." "Ray, you're being paranoid." Her voice rises. "I'm tired of managing everything alone while you crawl around in dirty basements. Someone has to handle the real responsibilities around here." Tyler's door creaks. He's listening from the hallway. Shannon immediately softens, switching to whispered arguments about not waking our son. But I catch something in her reaction, relief that the fight got derailed. She's grateful for the interruption, which means she's hiding something bigger than insurance paperwork. Later that night, Shannon's phone glows on the nightstand as text messages arrive. I pretend to sleep, watching through barely open eyes as she reads them, her face illuminated by blue light. Her fingers move quickly across the screen, typing responses. The conversation continues for nearly 20 minutes, too long for casual work messages. When she finally sets the phone down, her breathing is different, excited, anticipatory. She lies awake, staring at the ceiling long after she thinks I'm asleep. The woman beside me feels like a stranger wearing my wife's face. The next morning, I check our phone bill online while Shannon showers. The number she was texting appears dozens of times over the past months, always during my work hours, always in lengthy conversations. I cross-reference it with the insurance documents on my phone. The number belongs to Marcus Chen, the same man listed as beneficiary on our life insurance policy. Shannon emerges from the bathroom, towel wrapped around her, asking what I'm looking at so intently on the laptop. "Just checking our data usage," I lie, watching her reflection in the mirror. Her relief is visible and terrifying. The insurance adjuster who processed our policy change is someone my wife has been texting every single day for months. I sat at the kitchen table at 6 a.m., my coffee growing cold as I stared at Marcus Chen's business card. The house felt different now, every creak suspicious, every shadow hiding secrets I'd missed for months. My calloused fingers traced the embossed lettering, Meridian Wealth Management. I pulled out my phone and searched his name. A professional headshot appeared. Mid-30s, expensive suit, confident smile that probably charmed dozens of wives just like Shannon. Financial advisor, of course. The morning light streamed through windows Shannon had cleaned yesterday, highlighting dust motes that danced like my scattered thoughts. Everything looked normal. Nothing felt right anymore. I scrolled through his company profile, specializing in portfolio management and life insurance optimization. The words made my stomach turn. How long had they been planning this? I screenshot everything, my phone's camera clicking softly in the quiet kitchen. Shannon's footsteps creaked overhead, getting ready for work at her father's law firm. I wondered if Gerald knew about Marcus too, if this whole thing was some kind of family operation. My work phone buzzed. 3 service calls today, including a restaurant downtown that always took hours. Perfect cover. I drove my work van to Meridian Wealth Management during lunch break, parking across the street behind a delivery truck. Through the glass windows, I watched Marcus Chen gesture animatedly to an elderly couple, his movements smooth and practiced. Designer watch caught the light, manicured hands that had never held a wrench. My phone buzzed. A text from Shannon. Working late again tonight, love you. The irony tasted bitter as week-old coffee. I photographed the building, noting the expensive cars in the lot. Mercedes, BMW, Porsche. Marcus's world was polished chrome and marble lobbies. Mine smelled like refrigerant and duct tape. A black BMW 340 I pulled into the reserved spot marked M. Chen. I watched him emerge, tall, lean, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly take-home. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. Everything about him was the opposite of me. Clean hands, soft voice, college degree probably framed on his office wall. I understood now why Shannon chose him. That evening, I waited until Shannon's shower started before checking our joint bank statements online. My hands shook as I scrolled through months of transactions. There, $2,400 to MC Consulting 3 months ago. Another $1,800 2 months later. Then $3,200 last month. The payments were always on Thursdays. Always when I worked late at the restaurant job. I screenshot everything, documenting the systematic drain of our savings. The shower stopped running upstairs. I quickly closed the browser and grabbed a trade magazine. Shannon appeared in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, looking innocent and beautiful. Water droplets clung to her neck where I used to kiss her good morning. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, kissing my forehead. The lie burned my throat. "Fine." She settled beside me on the couch, her hand finding mine. "You seem tense lately." "Everything okay at work?" I stared at her wedding ring, the simple gold band we'd picked out together 15 years ago, when we could barely afford the payment plan. "Just tired. Maybe we should take a vacation, get away somewhere nice." Her thumb traced circles on my palm. "Marcus mentioned this resort in Cabo that sounds amazing." Marcus. She'd said his name so casually, like he was an old friend instead of the man systematically destroying our marriage. "Since when do you talk to our financial advisor about vacations?" Shannon's hand stilled. He's been really helpful with our portfolio. Very attentive to what we need." The words hung in the air like smoke from an electrical fire, toxic and impossible to ignore. I called Vincent Torres from my van during the next morning's service call. Prison bonds don't break easily, and I needed someone I could trust absolutely. "Vince, I need a favor. Can you run a background check?" His gravelly voice carried 8 years of shared trust. "What's the name?" "Marcus Chen, financial advisor." Vincent's silence stretched long enough for me to hear traffic in the background. "Ray, whatever you're thinking, be smart about it. You can't afford another mistake." The HVAC unit hummed behind me as I explained about the insurance policy and bank transfers. Vincent agreed to help, no questions asked. He understood that some situations required information before action. "Give me 24 hours," he said. "And Ray, don't do anything stupid while you wait." I hung up feeling less alone but more afraid. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, matching the heat building in my chest. Vincent's text arrived at 9 p.m. while Shannon and I watched TV. Marcus Chen, 34, divorced last year, drives black BMW 340i, lives at Riverside Towers, apartment 12B. Clean record. Want the address? I stared at the message while Shannon laughed at something on screen, her hand resting casually on my thigh. The sound felt sharp in the quiet room. Riverside Towers, the luxury complex Shannon always admired when we drove past. "Those people have it made," she'd say, pressing her face to the passenger window. Now I knew she meant it literally. I typed back, "Send it." The address appeared immediately, along with another message. "Building has security cameras and keycard entry. Be careful." Shannon glanced at my phone. "Work emergency?" "Just scheduling tomorrow's calls." Her smile was warm and trusting, the same smile she'd given me on our wedding day when she promised to love me through better or worse. Apparently worse had an expiration date. I drove past Riverside Towers at midnight, noting the security cameras and keycard entry system. Marcus's BMW sat in space 12B, engine still warm from evening use. The building rose 20 stories into the night sky, all glass and steel and money. I parked across the street and watched the lit windows above, wondering which one belonged to the man sleeping with my wife. A security guard made rounds every 20 minutes. I timed it carefully, my HVAC training making me naturally observant of building systems and patterns. The night air carried the scent of expensive landscaping and broken promises. This wasn't random anymore. This was reconnaissance. My phone buzzed with a text from Shannon. "Miss you. Wish you were here." I stared at the message, then at the building where her lover lived. The timestamp showed 12:47 a.m. Where exactly did she think I was? The next morning, I discovered Shannon's phone charging in the kitchen while she showered. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Her passcode was Tyler's birthday. It always had been. The messages to M filled the screen. Dozens of them. Heart emojis. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Ray's working late again. He has no idea." I scrolled back months, watching their relationship develop from professional courtesy to intimate planning. Marcus calling her beautiful and perfect. Shannon responding with photos I recognized. The red dress from our anniversary dinner, taken in our bedroom mirror. The timestamps matched nights she claimed to be at her parents' house. The shower water stopped. I quickly replaced the phone and grabbed my thermos, hands shaking so badly I spilled coffee across the counter. Shannon emerged humming softly, wrapped in the blue robe I'd bought her last Christmas. She kissed my cheek and started making Tyler's lunch. "Sleep well?" she asked. Like the dead. I waited until Tyler went to bed before confronting Shannon. She was folding laundry in our living room, sorting Tyler's school clothes into neat piles. "I know about Marcus Chen." The color drained from her face. She froze mid-fold, one of Tyler's shirts hanging limp in her hands. For a moment, the only sound was the grandfather clock ticking in the corner, the same clock her parents had given us as a wedding gift. "Ray, the insurance policy, the bank transfers, the late nights at your parents' house that weren't actually at your parents' house." My voice stayed steady despite the earthquake in my chest. Shannon collapsed onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Tyler's shirt fell to the floor. "How long have you known?" she whispered. "Long enough." The room felt smaller now, walls closing in on 15 years of marriage. Every piece of furniture held memories that felt poisoned now. The coffee table where we'd planned our budget, the bookshelf holding Tyler's baby pictures, the couch where we'd made love just last week. How long, Shannon? She looked up, tears streaming. 14 months. It started when he helped with our portfolio after Dad recommended him. 14 months. Over a year of lies, of coming home to kiss me after being with him, of planning my replacement while I worked overtime to pay for her happiness. The insurance policy? That was my idea. I was scared, Ray. Scared of what would happen if you found out. She reached for me, but I pulled away. Scared I'd leave? Or scared I wouldn't? The question hung between us like a blade. Shannon's confession poured out in broken pieces. How Marcus made her feel young again. How he listened when she talked about her dreams. How he promised her a life beyond HVAC service calls and second-hand furniture. I never meant for it to happen, she sobbed. But you're always working, always tired. When's the last time you took me somewhere nice? When's the last time you made me feel beautiful? I stared at the woman I'd worked 3 jobs to support. When's the last time you told me you wanted those things instead of just finding them somewhere else? My phone buzzed during her breakdown, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet us at the house in 1 hour. Gerald. Shannon's father. I showed her the message and watched her face go white. They know? She whispered. Know what, Shannon? But she was already reaching for her phone with shaking fingers. I realized this went deeper than an affair. The insurance policy, the timing, the careful financial moves. This wasn't Shannon's panicked reaction to guilt. This was planned. The grandfather clock chimed 10 o'clock, each note hanging heavy in the air like an executioner's countdown. Car lights swept across our front windows exactly 1 hour later. I watched from behind the curtains as Gerald and Patricia Blackwood emerged from their silver Cadillac, their movements purposeful and coordinated. Patricia carried a manila folder. Gerald checked his expensive watch. They weren't here for a family emergency. They were here for business. Shannon gripped my arm. They made me do it, she whispered desperately. They said you'd never amount to anything, that Tyler deserved better, that I deserved better. The doorbell rang twice, sharp and demanding. Did you tell them about Marcus, or did they tell you about Marcus? Shannon's silence was answer enough. I opened the door to find Gerald Blackwood in his charcoal suit, Patricia beside him in pearls and judgment. They looked like they were attending a funeral. Mine, apparently. Raymond. Gerald nodded curtly, his lawyer's voice carrying courtroom authority. We know Shannon told you about Marcus. Good. Saves us the pretense. They entered without invitation. Patricia opened her folder on our coffee table. Bank statements, property assessments, custody evaluation forms. Documents with my name on them that I'd never seen. We've been planning Shannon's future for months, Patricia said, her voice crisp as winter air. Tyler's future. I stared at the papers, recognizing my own financial death warrant. Property division, asset allocation, custody recommendations. The affair was just the beginning, Gerald continued, settling into my recliner like he owned it. Shannon deserves stability, real stability, not this. He gestured around our modest living room with distaste. The room filled with Patricia's expensive perfume and the metallic taste of betrayal. This wasn't just adultery. This was a calculated family coup. How long have you been planning this? Gerald smiled, the same cold expression he probably wore in court when destroying someone's life. Since the day Shannon married you. I sat in Gerald Blackwood's office, the leather chair creaking under my weight. My hands still carried grease stains from this morning's service call, a broken heat exchanger on Maple Street. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Here I was, surrounded by mahogany and law books, while Shannon's father slid a manila folder across his polished desk. We need to discuss your situation, Raymond. Gerald's voice carried the same condescending tone I'd heard at family dinners for 15 years. The office reeked of expensive cologne and old money. Behind him, diplomas and awards covered the wall like trophies. Family photos, too. Shannon's childhood, her law school graduation, our wedding day. In every shot, I was either absent or pushed to the edges. I kept my mouth shut and waited. In my line of work, you learn to listen before you speak. Systems tell you what's wrong if you pay attention. Gerald opened the folder, revealing documents I'd never seen before. Medical forms, incident reports, photographs. Shannon came to us 6 months ago, concerned about your episodes. What episodes? My voice came out rougher than intended. The office door opened without a knock. Patricia Blackwood clicked across the hardwood in her designer heels, placing a manicured hand on her husband's shoulder. A united front. The anger, Raymond. The way you've been acting since discovering the insurance change. That's when it hit me. They'd been building a narrative, constructing a story where I was the problem. The afternoon light filtered through heavy curtains, casting everything in amber shadows. I felt like a specimen under glass. Patricia produced a stack of photographs from her purse. 8x10 glossies, professional quality. Me arguing with Mrs. Henderson about her thermostat settings. Me throwing my tools into the truck after a 12-hour day. Me sitting alone in the bleachers at Tyler's baseball game because Shannon was running errands. We've been documenting concerning behaviors, Patricia said, her voice clinical. Each photo felt like a violation. The outbursts, the isolation, the paranoid accusations about Shannon. My hands started shaking, not from fear, from rage. You've been watching me? Gerald leaned forward, his expensive suit rustling. We're concerned about Shannon and Tyler's safety, Raymond. Your history speaks for itself. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressed in like a collapsing duct. I understood now. This wasn't just about Shannon's affair. They hadn't just planned her exit strategy. They'd been building a case against me for months, making me look dangerous, unstable, unfit. I stood up fast, the chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. I've never hurt Shannon or Tyler. Never. Patricia's smile was sharp as winter. Your criminal record suggests otherwise. The words hit like a wrench to the gut. 18 months in Riverside Correctional. Assault charges. A bar fight that went too far when some college kid called me white trash. Ancient history, but it followed me everywhere like exhaust fumes. I walked to the window, looking down at the street where normal people lived normal lives. Behind me, Gerald shuffled more papers. We have statements from neighbors about raised voices, from Tyler's school about his anxiety levels. Each revelation was another system failure. They've been poisoning every relationship, every interaction. The conspiracy ran deeper than adultery. It was character assassination, methodical and complete. Gerald's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Mrs. Patterson next door mentioned several concerning incidents. Late-night arguments, objects being thrown. That was one plate, I said, my back still to them. Shannon threw it at me during an argument about the credit cards. Ah, but who would believe that version? Patricia's voice dripped with false sympathy. I turned around and Gerald was holding the final document, commitment papers, already partially filled out, my name typed neatly in the patient field. A 72-hour psychiatric hold, renewable if necessary. Gerald's tone was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. My vision blurred red around the edges. You can't be serious. Patricia adjusted her pearls. With your history of violence and recent erratic behavior, it's quite reasonable. We have documentation, witness statements, professional concerns. I grabbed the edge of the desk, knuckles white against the dark wood. Everything clicked into place like a properly wired circuit. The affair was just the beginning. They wanted me gone completely, erased from Shannon and Tyler's lives. The room spun as memories of Riverside flashed through my mind. Concrete walls, steel bars, the smell of disinfectant and despair. They were sending me back to hell. I forced myself to sit back down, breathing deep. Count to 10. Breathe. Think. The anger management techniques Dr. Martinez taught me kicked in automatically. Gerald mistook my silence for defeat. We're not unreasonable people, Raymond. Voluntary commitment shows responsibility. It demonstrates that you recognize you need help. My mind cleared like fog lifting off morning pavement. These people saw me as a dumb ex-con, a problem to be managed and disposed of. But I'd spent 8 years rebuilding myself, learning systems, understanding how things really worked. They underestimated me completely. The afternoon sun shifted through the windows, and I saw everything clearly for the first time in days. Patricia slid a gold pen across the desk. Sign the voluntary commitment form, and we'll ensure Tyler knows his father got the help he needed. We'll make sure he remembers you fondly. I picked up the pen, examining it like a precision tool. Everything in this office was expensive, imported, perfect. Mahogany from Brazil, leather from Italy, crystal from Ireland. But I knew something they didn't. I understood systems. HVAC systems, electrical systems, plumbing systems, and most importantly, how to find the weak points where systems fail. I set the pen down without signing. I need time to think about this. Gerald nodded like he was humoring a child. Of course, but not too long, Raymond. These situations have a way of escalating. I stood to leave, noting every detail with the precision I used to diagnose faulty equipment. Security camera in the corner, model number visible. Electronic lock on Gerald's filing cabinet, probably connected to their network. Patricia's purse sitting open, revealing her phone with notifications still lighting up the screen. One question, I said, hand on the door handle. How long have you been planning this? Gerald and Patricia exchanged glances, the kind of look married couples share when they're deciding how much truth to reveal. Since Shannon told us about Marcus, Patricia admitted. We knew she deserved better than... She gestured dismissively at me, her diamond bracelet catching the light. The insult landed, but I filed it away with everything else. Information, evidence, ammunition for later. The leather portfolio under Gerald's arm probably contained more documents, custody agreements, asset transfers, maybe even divorce papers already drawn up. I needed to see what else they had planned. I'll be in touch, I said, opening the door. Walking to my truck, my phone buzzed with a text from Shannon. How did it go with my parents? They said they wanted to help us work things out. I stared at the message, the final piece clicking into place. Shannon wasn't a victim of her parents' manipulation. She was an active participant. She knew exactly where I'd been, what had just happened. The betrayal cut deeper than the affair, deeper than the insurance fraud. For 15 years, I thought I found a family that accepted my past. Instead, they'd been waiting for the right moment to use it against me. The November wind cut through my work shirt as I climbed into the cab. But instead of feeling defeated, something else built in my chest. Determination. Cold, methodical determination. I drove through downtown, past the courthouse where I was sentenced 8 years ago, past the apartment complex where I lived when I got out. But this time, I wasn't the same scared ex-con trying to disappear. I was a man with skills, knowledge, and 8 years of clean living behind me. I parked outside First National Trust and watched through the windows as Amanda Foster processed transactions. Banks had systems too. Digital trails, security protocols, documentation requirements. Everything left a paper trail if you knew where to look. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. Time to start documenting everything Gerald and Patricia had just revealed. If they wanted to play games with paperwork and legal manipulation, I could learn their rules. My reformed lifestyle wasn't a weakness. It was my greatest weapon. The glass doors of First National Trust reflected my weathered face as I pushed through at 9:47 a.m. My work boots echoed against the marble floor, each step deliberate. The manila folder in my hands felt heavier than any tool I'd ever carried. Amanda Foster looked up from behind the customer service desk, her professional smile faltering when she saw my expression. "Mr. Kowalski, how can I help you today?" I set the folder down with a soft thud. Need to make some changes to our joint accounts. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the documents as I opened the folder. Account statements, withdrawal slips, copies of text messages, everything Gerald and Patricia had revealed last night, plus what I discovered on my own. The paper trail they thought I was too stupid to follow. "What kind of changes?" Amanda asked, her pen poised over a notepad. "All of them." I pulled out the first form, account closure request for our joint savings. Starting with this. The morning sunlight streaming through tall windows caught the dust motes dancing in the air. 15 years of marriage, and it all came down to paperwork in a bank lobby. Amanda's fingers hesitated over her keyboard. "This requires both account holders' signatures, Mr. Kowalski. Check the signature cards. Joint account holders have equal access." I'd done my homework with Vincent Torres, spent hours researching banking regulations. "I can close it myself." The electronic beeps of her computer filled the silence as she verified my authority. Her face grew pale as the account balance appeared on screen. $43,200. Our emergency fund. Shannon's escape money. Heels clicked frantically across the marble floor behind me. I didn't need to turn around. "Ray, what are you doing here?" Shannon's voice pitched higher than usual, that fake sweetness cracking under pressure. I kept my eyes on Amanda Foster. "Protecting what's mine." Shannon's reflection appeared in the computer monitor as she approached the desk. Designer blouse, expensive jewelry, manicured nails that had never touched honest work. "You can't just—" $43,200, I recited from memory, sliding the first withdrawal slip across the counter. "Minus the $38,000 you've been siphoning to Marcus Chen." The blood drained from Shannon's face. Amanda Foster's eyes widened as she processed the accusation hanging in the sterile air. "How did you—" Shannon's voice cracked like breaking glass. "I read everything, Shannon. Everything." My smile felt cold as winter steel. "Your boyfriend's investment portfolio, the insurance policy, your parents' replacement plan. All of it." Shannon's phone buzzed against the marble counter. Marcus Chen calling again. She ignored it, focused on me methodically destroying our financial life with surgical precision. I pulled out a second folder, thicker than the first. Text messages between you and Marcus. Meeting schedules. Withdrawal authorization forms with your signature. Each document hit the counter like evidence at trial. "Your boyfriend's portfolio management won't help you now." Amanda Foster's hands trembled as she processed the account closure. The air conditioning hummed overhead, but the lobby felt stifling as our marriage dissolved in real time. "The heat exchangers cracked at 1247 Maple Street," I said into my phone, calling Precision Climate Solutions. "Complete system failure. Need emergency service today." Shannon stared in horror as I fabricated a costly repair scenario for our own home. "Ductwork needs replacement, refrigerant leak, control board failure, full system overhaul." "Ray, that's our house." $12,000 minimum, I continued into the phone. "Due immediately for emergency service." My technical knowledge became a weapon, each fabricated problem designed to drain our resources before she could access them. The lobby's marble floor felt like quicksand beneath Shannon's feet. Amanda Foster hesitated before processing the final account closure, glancing nervously between us. I produced a cashier's check made out to Vincent Torres, $25,000. "Outstanding debt," I explained simply. Shannon recognized the name and gasped. You're giving our money to a criminal? Reformed criminal, like me. My laugh tasted bitter.
Difference is, he stayed loyal.
The check represented months of Shannon's planning, money she'd earmarked for her new life with Marcus Chen. Sunlight shifted across the lobby floor like a closing door. Glass doors burst open as Gerald and Patricia Blackwood rushed inside, Gerald's expensive suit wrinkled from hurrying across town. Patricia's pearls caught the fluorescent light as she surveyed the financial wreckage spread across Amanda's desk. "Raymond, we can discuss this civilly," Gerald attempted, his lawyer's voice strained. I didn't look up from signing forms. "Like you discussed replacing me with Marcus Chen?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Patricia's face flushed red as other customers openly stared at our family drama unfolding in the pristine bank lobby. "You can't liquidate assets without Shannon's consent," Gerald blusters, trying to assert legal authority. I slid a power of attorney form across the counter. "Shannon's signature from our mortgage refinancing 2 years ago. Joint account holders have equal access. Your daughter signed this." Gerald's face reddened as he realized I'd outmaneuvered him using perfectly legal tactics. Months of research with Vincent Torres had paid off. Shannon finally found her voice, desperation making it crack. "Ray, please, think about Tyler. Think about our family." For a moment, my steady composure wavered. Our 12-year-old son, caught between his parents' war. Then I remembered the insurance policy, the replacement plan, the months of deception. "I am thinking about Tyler," I said quietly. "He needs to see that actions have consequences." Amanda Foster completed the final transaction, electronic beeps sounding like a funeral dirge for our marriage. The lobby fell silent except for the distant hum of the building's HVAC system, a sound I knew intimately. I gathered my documents methodically, each paper a piece of evidence in the case against my former life. Shannon stood frozen beside her parents, watching 15 years reduced to account closure receipts. Turning to leave, I paused. Marcus Chen's investment advice was solid. Too bad you won't have any money left to invest. My work boots echoed across the marble floor as I walked toward the exit. Through tall windows, downtown traffic moved in predictable patterns, unlike the chaos I was leaving behind. The autumn air hit my face as I stepped outside. $43,000 transferred to my personal account, emergency fund secured, Shannon's escape route eliminated. But as I climbed into my service van, Tyler's face flashed through my mind. Tonight I'd have to explain why Mommy was crying, why Daddy had to hurt the family to save it. The engine turned over with a familiar rumble. Systems only worked when every component did its job. I'd done mine. Shannon would survive this. Her parents would make sure of that. But she'd lost something that couldn't be rebuilt. The illusion that actions didn't have consequences. I pulled into traffic, radio crackling with service calls. Broken furnaces, failed heat pumps, systems that needed fixing. Work I understood. Work that made sense. The rearview mirror showed Shannon stumbling out of the bank, her parents flanking her like bodyguards. She'd find another provider, another ATM, but it wouldn't be me. My phone buzzed. Vincent Torres texting his thanks for the money transfer. Reformed criminals sticking together. At least someone understood loyalty. The city stretched ahead, full of houses with broken HVAC systems. People who needed honest work done right. I could rebuild from that foundation. Tyler would understand someday. When he was older, when he learned that sometimes destroying something broken was the only way to build something that lasted. The radio crackled again. Emergency call on the south side. I flipped on my flashers and headed toward the work that waited, leaving the wreckage of my marriage in the pristine bank lobby behind.